Hi, and welcome to our debate. We will be discussing how we are against staffing mandates. To get started, let's start at the beginning. As nurses, we all have a common goal, and that's to give great quality care to our patients. But that goal can be hard to achieve with a heavy workload and increased responsibilities and lack of support. So the question remains, how can we best achieve the goal of safe staffing while still supporting nurses? According to one resource, the idea of mandating staff came up because of the presence behind mandating nurse-patient ratios is the minimum specific guaranteed nurse staffing will produce better patient outcomes and alleviate nurse workloads and increase job satisfaction. So the idea of mandating a lower RN to patient ratio was born because they thought that this would help our workloads and increase our job satisfaction. So many people argue that mandating a nurse to patient ratio is the answer to safe staffing. But what if a ratio of 4 to 1 is heavier than a ratio of 6 to 1 on certain days? That's not solving any issues. The nurse may still feel fatigued and burn out at the end of the day. So then what's a different approach that we can take to help retain staff and keep staff safe for both employees and patients? We believe it's about acuity-based staffing. But let's talk a little bit more about staffing mandates. It requires more nurses, so you have to hire into the current holes you have. You need to hire more per diem nurses and agency nurses. That's pretty costly. So with the staffing mandates, you have a higher cost and you're not guaranteeing a lower workload, so you could have an increased workload. Nurses are unable to take a break without a replacement because of the required ratio. We will be performing more non-nursing tasks. Acuity is not taken into consideration. The ratios are inflexible, and there's no real data that shows that mandates provide better outcomes. And this is proven by California. They mandated a nurse-to-patient ratio in 1999. This mandate resulted in an increased workload and decreased nursing satisfaction. It was difficult for California to recruit nurses and keep them in the profession, and they were reported of having the lowest population of nurses. Now, I know that's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine that a lower ratio is going to result in increased workloads, but it's happening. So let's keep an open mind to other options that are out there. So far, studies conducted have found that these mandated staffing ratios do not support the position of the pro-ratio movement that ratios will improve quality. Studies have found that in the state of California, there has not been a significant impact on patient quality care, safety, or length of stay. So let's talk about an alternative. An alternative to the government-mandated staffing ratios is to have a strong relationship between management and nursing staff. Having a strong relationship between these two entities could keep the government from intervening, because we all know and probably agree that the government does not have a place in every aspect of our lives. And when it comes to patient care, we're on the front line. We're the ones caring for them, doing the 12-hour shifts. We know how to do our jobs. The government doesn't. So why are we going to let them intervene when they don't do what we do? We know best how to care for our patients. So pursuing nursing staffing regulations would divert nursing staff and management's attention into politics rather than where the real solution could be found, and that's in the workplace. Safe staffing is imperative in healthcare altogether, but there are other options besides mandated ratios. In one resource we found, he discusses other options such as staffing plans and public disclosure. He states, with the use of staffing plans and committees, hospital administrators and nursing staff jointly determine and implement staffing plans that will produce the best patient outcomes. This gives hospitals the autonomy to make decisions regarding staffing without being mandated to have certain ratios. This makes more sense because it takes other issues into consideration when determining staffing, because we know nursing and staffing, it's not black and white, it's gray. So why are we going to have a cut and dry ratio when we know that it shouldn't be that way? So let's talk about acuity-based staffing. Genesis healthcare system, which is a pretty well-known healthcare system, they had the same issues that we're all dealing with the poor staffing. We feel like we're not being supported, bad outcomes are happening. They recognize that. So they saw the need for systematic method to measure the acuity of each patient to better help assign each patient into a group or an assignment for the nurse to care for. Quote, one key issue was inconsistent policies across the health system. Some units, after a wave of discharges that left empty beds, would send nurses home to cut costs, others wouldn't. It was left up to the manager's discretion. Projecting a patient's census was difficult, which contributed to inconsistent staffing levels that required fast action and often involved unplanned overtime charges. So the Genesis healthcare team took about 2 years, created an acuity-based system that calculated the score, and this acuity score has proven to reduce costs of staffing and increase quality of care given. And the article talks about how the nurses are happy. They're happy, which means patients are happy, which means everyone's happy. They also went on to say that this system not only helps us get the staffing right, it helps justify our staffing decisions if questions arise. If asked why extra nurses were called in mid-shift on a particular date, the managers can point to the census and the acuity levels to demonstrate the actual need for additional nursing resources. Adequate staffing levels based on acuity have shown to reduce patient complications and mortality, decrease medical errors, improve patient satisfaction, and reduce nurse burnout. Isn't that what we're all seeking? So a little bit more evidence to support this. Though there is a strong relationship between more staff and lower morbidities, there's a lack of evidence to support the root reason of why mandating staff ratios is the answer. To date, no intervention studies have assessed the effect of deliberate change in registered nurse to patient staffing ratios. Much of the studies that you read about mandating nurse to patient ratios are either done in tertiary healthcare centers where the morbidity rate is low, or they weren't trying to deliberately change the ratio, they just found a pattern. So there's no reason for administration to spend money on resources that are unnecessary. That money could be better spent on technology, hospital upgrades, like an acuity score calculator. Mandatory ratios, if imposed nationally, may result in increased overall costs of care with no guarantees for improvement in quality or positive outcomes of the hospitalization. So why are we going to support something when we know it's going to cost more and it's not proven to work? That money could be used much better elsewhere. So in conclusion, we're all trying to achieve the same goal, so let's keep an open mind to all options. Is allowing the state to mandate our workflow really the right decision for us? Let's work together with management and administration to find out what's best for our facility, as each is unique. We all have different workloads. We have different patient populations, different patient stories, different experiences, different nurses, and nursing knowledge. So since nursing ratio mandates is not black and white, and nursing is not black and white, we shouldn't be choosing the wrong solution. Let's look at acuity, let's look at what our patients actually need, and let's develop a staffing system around our patient needs. Thank you for listening.